House of Five Leaves has to be one of the most underappreciated shows in the last 4 or 5 years. It aired in 2010, but it didn't garner that much attention and sold pretty poorly despite being really unique. The show takes the normal Edo samurai setting and turns it into a brilliant character-driven story that does a lot with very little. The show is very simplistic in nature. At first glance there might not be much to look at, but it turns out to be incredibly detailed. A great twist from the normal samurai shows. So how did it make a successful samurai series without any actions or gory sword fights? How did it create such a specific atmosphere with dialogue only? I'll be discussing this and many more topics in my review of House of Five Leaves by Mangglobe. Like I said, the story doesn't actually do much on the surface. If you try and explain it to somebody, it'll sound lackluster or uneventful. But House of Five Leaves does something very unique. It takes quite ordinary conversations or events and turns them into extremely exciting storylines. The story focuses on a few weeks in the life of Masa, an unusual samurai. Where other samurai shows would have a confident, impressive samurai master as their main character, House of Five Leaves opted for the complete opposite. Although Masa's skills with a sword are undoubtedly good, he has a lot of confidence issues and social anxiety. This allows the story to focus on characters more than any sort of action, something we very rarely get to explore in samurai shows. The show is really an exploration of various questions about how we should live our lives. Very simple questions like how we should treat others to more complex questions like how and when is it okay to steal. These basic philosophies are the supporting pillars for the rest of the story. We explore many different characters and situations where the questions are approached from each angle. I thought the way in which these philosophies were discussed was great. Not once did I have a natural bias towards a point of view. Each person had their own reasoning for what they did. A very hard thing to do when talking about stealing and loyalty. So one of the main themes was stealing. When is it okay to steal, how is it okay to steal, and who is it okay to steal from? All these questions are brought up in the series. Obviously you can't directly relate these to modern day society, but many of the points they made are still relevant today. Loyalty was another one of the main themes. They used the old samurai gangs and clans to discuss this. They showed us situations where characters' loyalty could be debatable, but not because they weren't loyal, but because their idea of loyalty was different from another's. So when part of a clan, are you loyal to the clan, to the leader of the clan, or to the people who make up the clan? Yet again, they execute this perfectly, showing many points of views and possible answers. The last theme I'm going to touch upon is probably one of the more important ones. As I mentioned, the main character has various mental issues, although it doesn't always directly address them. Normally the main character is put into situations where he might feel uncomfortable or under pressure and forced to react to them. This is an incredibly smart way of subtly addressing the theme of mental health without seeming too direct. Although it's prominent, the theme doesn't get in the way of the other elements of the show. I see this happening quite a lot in anime where mental health issues are brought up into a show. They tend to overshadow everything else in the series, but House of Five Leaves managed this pretty well. The ending did wrap up the show, but possibly left something to desire. With a story as broad as House of Five Leaves, it's hard to really pinpoint where to wrap the story up. They could have chosen any of the aspects or characters to focus on, so the ending they did choose was very good, but they ended up neglecting a few of the other aspects of the show. That being said, I did feel satisfied with the ending. It referenced back to the start of the story and did a good job of creating a stopping point. Overall, the story was very well done. I felt attached to all the aspects of the story, and although it was somewhat uneventful, it felt like a more realistic portrayal of samurai life. The characters were the main focus of the show, and it didn't just focus on Masa. Many other characters were just as developed, if not more developed than our main character. Various characters developed the various aspects of the show. For example, Yaichi opened up more story about the various clans and criminal activity, while Umezo told the story from a more family-based perspective. Probably the best aspect of the characters was how mature they were. Since anime are normally made for the demographics of teenagers or young adults, we rarely get to see mature characters. In House of Five Leaves, each of the characters were believable. It felt as if their problems were genuine problems. You could really get attached to the characters and their lives. Like I touched on earlier, each character of the story had their own set of morals and motivations. This gives us a really diverse set of characters that helps create a really dynamic story. Much like the show itself, the art style at first seems bland and gloomy, but on closer inspection, it's incredibly detailed and full of artistic expression. Very few times have I seen an art style mirror the show as well as House of Five Leaves did. Every aspect of the story and characters flows into the art style. Like the characters, the style feels lost. It doesn't have a specific identity. We have a mixture of more colourful scenes and scenes that are more monochromatic. An absolutely beautiful and unique art style that fits the show perfectly. In terms of production quality, Manglobe did a fairly good job. The backgrounds looked nice with a watercolour style. There were quite a few scenes with busy animation and character movement seemed really smooth. But because of the cam nature of the show, the production value never really got a chance to do anything too impressive. But that's understandable from a thematic perspective. It wasn't a show about action or fast sword fights. The soundtrack was okay, but only a few tracks stood out. Unlike the art, the soundtrack wasn't that stylized. They went for a classic Japanese samurai soundtrack. Most of the tracks were quite mellow and reused similar instruments. Although the soundtrack didn't stand out as much as other elements in the show, it still worked well. It played into the tranquility the story had. So, was House of Five Leaves a successful twist on the samurai genre? Absolutely. Not only that, but it invented its own unique style through its realistic characters and gorgeous art style. House of Five Leaves really stands on its own as a show that manages to stay tense and exciting without doing much. A mere sentence of dialogue in this show can mean so much because of the excellent character development and story building. Where other shows fail to even come close in over 20 episodes, this show nails it in such style in just 12 episodes. House of Five Leaves uses its lack of style to create one of the most stylistic shows I've seen in years. I'm still not completely sure how they managed to do it, but it was brilliant. Once again, thank you for watching my review. If you enjoyed this review, you can help me out by clicking the like button. You can also click on the screen to watch more of my reviews, or you can subscribe.